Okay, so the second week of the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. Wow. It really delivered some, what many are calling explosive testimony.
Absolutely. And with potential life in prison on the table,
Mm.
I mean, the stakes just couldn't be higher. You feel that gravity.
For sure. So for this deep dive, we've gone right into the Law and Crime Network transcripts, really trying to pull out the key moments from the trial coverage.
Right. The idea is to give you the crucial bits, the main revelations, without you having to sift through, hours and hours of reporting.
Exactly. Our mission here is basically to unpack the core allegations, maybe spot some key contradictions, and just get a better handle on the bigger picture from these witnesses.
And today we're focusing on three specific people. Don Richard, formerly of Danity Kane,
Right?
then Kerry Morgan, who was apparently Cassie Ventura's best friend for a long, long time,
Okay.
and finally David James, who worked as a personal assistant for Combs.
Got it. So each one brings a different perspective, a different angle to this whole complex story. All right, let's dig into it. Starting with Dawn Richard. Her direct examination. It laid out some really serious stuff.
It really did. She talked about witnessing Diddy physically assault Cassie Ventura multiple times.
Including that specific incident with the egg skillet?
Yes, that came up. And also this alleged threat from Diddy, supposedly saying, don't say anything because where I'm from, people go missing. Which is, I mean, chilling.
Incredibly chilling. It speaks volumes about the alleged power dynamic, doesn't it?
It does. And Richard said even after witnessing these things, she still saw Cassie and Diddy together.
Right.
And she described, unfortunately, what sounded like a pattern of more violence, punching, dragging, kicking.
And it seemed almost random, like triggered if Cassie just spoke up for herself.
That's what she testified, yeah.
Yeah.
It paints a really disturbing picture of alleged control and abuse.
She also named names, didn't she? People she claims were there during some of these alleged incidents.
She did. Harf, Pierre, Mia, Capricorn, Clark, D-Rock, Bonds. Quite a list.
Yeah. That could be significant for corroboration down the line, potentially. And she placed the start of this violence, the first time she saw it, around 2009.
Yes, 2009. And another thing that stood out was her testimony about seeing injuries on Cassie, like around her eyes, legs, arms, injuries that Cassie would apparently try to cover up with makeup.
Which aligns with what Cassie herself has claimed previously,
Exactly. And that alleged incident at the Central Park Festival.
where she said she saw Diddy punch Cassie in the face.
Yeah, and Cassie then wore sunglasses to hide the swelling. It's a very vivid, troubling image she painted.
It really is. It just highlights the severity of what's being alleged here. She also talked about another incident, right? At a dinner.
A dinner with celebrities reportedly present, like Usher and Neo, and also employees.
And what did she say happened there?
She alleged Diddy punched Cassie in the stomach during the dinner.
Wow.
And then later, in the car, she said he slapped Cassie in the mouth.
So if true, it's suggesting alleged abuse happening even in semi-public settings.
Which feeds into this broader narrative of alleged control. Richard also touched on Diddy supposedly trying to isolate Cassie professionally,
How so?
discouraging others, like Don and Keena, from even talking to her.
Okay.
And then there were the allegations about drug use. Pretty extensive.
Right. She listed several substances: weed, ketamine, coke, molly, ecstasy.
Allegedly supplied by someone called One Top. Richard claimed she saw Diddy with these drugs, even carrying them across borders in a Louis Vuitton pouch.
And that he gave drugs to Keena, and maybe Cassie, too.
That was her testimony, yes.
And firearms, that came up, too.
It did. She said she saw Diddy with a handgun in the studio, at clubs, back in 2009, 2010.
And members of his security detail as well. D-Rock, Bonds.
Correct. She mentioned them carrying guns, too. It adds to this picture of potential intimidation,
Definitely. And even after she left, she said the contact didn't stop, assistants calling her.
Yeah, if she didn't pick up Diddy's calls, assistants would follow up. She said she stayed pleasant, basically out of fear, even though she felt he was mean.
And why didn't she say anything earlier? Did she address that?
She did. She testified that Diddy and Harv Pierre had told her not to, which, again, points to that alleged influence.
Interesting. And her own lawsuit, she filed that after Cassie came forward.
That's right, which might suggest Cassie's actions empowered her, perhaps.
Yeah.
But there's also this point about compensation.
Oh, yeah.
Initially, she reportedly said she wasn't expecting any money. But then later, under cross-examination, she apparently said she was seeking compensation for her work.
Okay. So that leads us right into the cross-examination by Nicole Westmoreland, the defense pushing back.
Exactly. And they really honed in on inconsistencies, comparing what she said on the stand to her lawsuit to earlier interviews with prosecutors, trying to poke
What
holes.
were some key examples?
Well, that egg skillet incident came up again.
Right.
They questioned the details. Did the pan actually hit Cassie? Did he throw eggs? Highlighting differences in how she described it over time.
And the timing of the people go missing threat.
Yes. They questioned when she first told prosecutors about that specific alleged threat. It's a classic cross-examination tactic, right?
Mm.
Find discrepancies, however small, to cast doubt on credibility.
Sure. And the celebrities at the dinner? Usher, Neo.
The defense asked why they weren't mentioned in her initial statements about that night.
Okay.
There was also some back and forth about the car incident, whether dragged was the right word or maybe a misquote from her lawyer.
Yeah.
And they pointed out, no video of the Central Park thing.
Right. Lack of physical evidence. Did anything else come up that contradicted her directly?
A big one, potentially, was the defense mentioning Keena Harper.
What about her?
They claimed Keena Harper denies ever witnessing any abuse. That's a direct clash with Richard's account, leaving the jury to figure that out.
And the guns.
The defense established Richard never saw Diddy actually, wave a gun or load it or put bullets in it, just that she saw him with one.
Gotcha.
Richard also admitted, apparently, to pretending to use drugs at one point. And the defense noted she hadn't mentioned seeing Diddy use cocaine in an earlier interview.
How did she explain these shifts in her story?
She basically said it was a long time ago, suggesting memory fades or clarifies over time, which is plausible, but something the jury has to weigh.
Sure.
She also confirmed she never saw anyone actually pay one top for the drugs she mentioned.
And the defense tried to suggest other motives for her testimony.
They did. They suggested she'd reached out to Diddy herself relatively recently, 2020, 2021 maybe.
Even after leaving.
Yeah, and that perhaps she was angry about the group, Danity Kane, breaking up. They highlighted the timing of her lawsuit relative to Cassie's.
And brought up the compensation thing again.
Contrasting her initial statement with what she said during cross about wanting compensation for her work. They even questioned why she'd try to reunite Dirty Money if she was supposedly so scared of him.
So lots of angles to suggest bias or question her motive.
Exactly. It sounds like the cross-examination really presented challenges to her narrative. And the report mentioned the jury seemed very attentive, maybe even a bit thrown for a loop by some of the inconsistencies brought out.
Okay, let's shift gears then. Carrie Morgan. Cassie Ventura's former best friend for, 17 years?
Yeah, a very long time. And her testimony came with a different kind of weight from the start.
How so?
She stated she was there under subpoena. She didn't want to testify, but was legally required to.
That's significant. And the reason they're no longer friends is pretty central, too, right?
Absolutely. She alleges that Diddy assaulted her, Carrie, with a wooden hanger back in 2018. Gave her a concussion.
Wow.
And she testified that it was Classie's reaction, or lack of support perhaps, after that incident that ended their friendship.
So, despite not wanting to be there, how did she come across?
Reports suggest she seemed more, maybe direct, confident in her answers compared to Dawn Richard.
Interesting. So she talked about their history, becoming friends with Cassie way back around 2004.
Yeah, and then being close with both Cassie and Diddy after they started dating in 2007, traveling together, parties.
Even drug use together.
She testified to that, yes. Molly, ecstasy, weed, even opioids, which she said Diddy provided. They went to Burning Man together, apparently.
Okay. And her description of Diddy's behavior, did it align with other testimony?
It did seem to corroborate aspects, yeah. She described mood swings, yelling, things that allegedly made Cassie lose confidence, criticizing her looks, her behavior.
And him calling Carrie to find Cassie.
Yes, that too. And crucially, she testified she personally witnessed Diddy physically assault Cassie on at least 2 occasions.
What were those alleged incidents?
One in the Hollywood Hills. She said Diddy hit Cassie, pulled her hair. And that a security guard, Ruben, just stood by and did nothing.
Didn't intervene at all.
Apparently not. She said they ended up hiding from Diddy afterward.
Okay. And the second one?
This was reportedly in Jamaica back in 2013. She alleged Diddy dragged Cassie by her hair because she was taking too long in the bathroom.
Dragged him by your hair?
That was the allegation. Said Cassie hit her head, went into a fetal position. Morgan said she argued with Diddy. Cassie ran off into the woods, and they ended up hiding in a ditch.
Good grief. Did Cassie get medical attention?
Morgan said no, which is another disturbing detail, if true.
Absolutely. She also talked about the aftermath of that 2016 hotel incident, right? The one involving the hammer?
Yes.
Yeah.
She recalled Cassie coming back with a black eye from whatever happened before.
Okay.
And then Diddy showing up later, banging on the door with a hammer, while Cassie just seemed numb.
Numb.
Yeah, Morgan's quote was something like, "I don't think she cared if he had killed her." Just a really chilling observation about Cassie's state at that moment.
That's incredibly stark, and Morgan called people after that.
She said she called Christina Koromer, or KK, and D-Rock, but she clarified the police only came because of a noise complaint, not because she called them for domestic violence.
And she had texts to back that up, showing Cassie didn't want it reported.
Apparently, yes. Text messages were mentioned that indicated Cassie didn't want to report it as domestic violence.
Did Morgan say she tried to get Cassie to leave him?
She did. She mentioned encouraging Cassie to leave, citing the alleged control Diddy had over her career, her finances. She also painted a picture of Cassie being quite isolated, few friends besides Carrie and Diddy's staff.
Which brings us back to the alleged assault on Carrie herself in 2018 with the hanger.
Right. At Cassie's house, she says, resulting in a concussion for Carrie. And the trigger, allegedly, was Diddy accusing Cassie of cheating.
And there was a settlement involved.
Yes, a $30,000 settlement for Carrie, and she signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
Which prevents her from talking about it publicly.
Typically, yes. And she testified this was all facilitated by Cassie herself, meeting at a pizza parlor, bizarrely enough.
Wow. So the falling out wasn't just the assault, but how Cassie handled it afterwards.
That's what Carrie seemed to imply, yeah. That she felt Cassie didn't have her back after Diddy allegedly assaulted her. And she confirmed she has no contact with either Cassie or Diddy since then.
And no pending lawsuits from her side related to this.
Correct. No current lawsuits. Her testimony, though, clearly adds weight to Cassie's claims and suggests, a potential pattern.
Okay, so then the cross-examination by Mark Agnifilo, what was the defense strategy there?
Well, they started by trying to potentially discredit Don Richard through Carrie.
How?
Showed Carrie a photo, and Carrie apparently said she didn't recognize anyone in it except Cassie. The implication being, if Richard was always around Cassie like she claimed, why wouldn't Carrie recognize her?
Ah, okay. Undermining Richard's credibility via Morgan.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Then they went through Carrie's history with Cassie, the long friendship, her previous relationship with Ryan Leslie.
Standard background stuff.
Right. Confirmed, Carrie saw them together often, studio, traveling. Brought up Burning Man again as something they did together.
Did they touch on jealousy?
They did. Agnifilo asked if Cassie was jealous of Kim Porter. Carrie confirmed that.
Okay.
They asked who paid for studio time, the label, Carrie said. Mentioned Diddy setting Cassie up with artists like Kid Cudi, Lil Wayne.
Trying to show he supported her career?
Seems likely. Then they pivoted back to Diddy's alleged jealousy. Asked about an incident with Cassie dancing with Chris Brown, but Carrie didn't recall it.
What about Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah, they asked about when Cassie was filming Honey 3 in South Africa, suggesting Diddy was jealous of Michael B. Jordan. Carrie denied any romance there.
Interesting. Did anyone else come up?
Yes, someone named Gina. Carrie called her a big problem, a little girl, clarifying not a minor, and even mentioned Gina allegedly got pregnant.
Okay. Any suggestion Cassie asked Carrie to cover for her?
Carrie denied that, didn't recall it happening.
What about the hammer incident again?
Defense pointed out no photos of the door damage. Police arrived 3 hours later, and it was for noise, not a DV call. Text messages with Christina Coram, KK, were shown, maybe suggesting KK was actually being helpful to Cassie at the time.
Okay. And Carrie's relationship with Diddy's staff?
Defense highlighted she considered people like KK, D-Rock, Derrick Rose as friends.
Trying to muddy the waters about allegiances, perhaps?
Could be. They also confirmed Carrie's own drug use with Cassie and Diddy.
Which he'd already mentioned.
Right. And confirmed Diddy sent Cassie to Mexico for treatment. Also confirmed that another claimant, Bah, had brought drugs to Cassie.
Yeah, okay.
Then they showed photos, Carrie, Cassie, others at the Met Gala, Burning Man. Pictures portraying a fun, close group, seemingly happy times.
Trying to counter the narrative of constant misery and abuse.
Exactly. And Carrie actually agreed, under questioning, that Cassie and Diddy seemed in love. That Diddy was flawed, sure, but that she, Carrie, had tried to help him be better.
That's a significant concession, maybe.
Potentially. They showed her a text she supposedly sent Diddy about self-love, which she didn't remember sending.
And the hanger incident. Any new details?
They asked who Cassie was allegedly cheating with at the time. Carrie couldn't recall. There was also some discrepancy about whether Carrie went to a hospital or urgent care after the alleged assault.
Did she have proof of injury? Police report?
Defense highlighted. No photos of her injuries, no police report filed, and her phone, other devices, weren't subpoenaed.
Okay, so what was the overall thrust of the defense's cross here?
It really seems aimed at suggesting the real reason for the friendship ending wasn't necessarily the alleged assault on Carrie, but Cassie's lack of support afterwards.
Trying to shift the focus of the fallout.
Right. Maybe imply Carrie's testimony is colored by that sense of betrayal from Cassie, rather than just the events themselves, casting doubt on her overall perspective and motivations.
Okay, that makes sense as a strategy. So finally, let's touch on David James, former personal assistant, 2007-2009, also testifying under subpoena.
Correct. His testimony gives us a glimpse into sort of the operational side of Diddy's world back then.
He had a fashion background and was pretty determined to get the job. Fax, email, hand-delivered resume.
Yeah, sounds like he really wanted it. And his interview story is interesting.
What happened?
Well, first, a senior VP named Bosa apparently told him, "It's Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're here to serve him."
Wow. Kingdom. That's quite a statement.
Isn't it? Tells you something about the environment, maybe. Then when James met Diddy, Diddy asked why he'd be a good PA.
And what did James say?
He apparently used a play on Diddy's own song, "Can't Stop, Won't Stop." Clever, I suppose.
Guess it worked. So what were his duties? Sounds intense.
Very. Arrive before Diddy, get documents ready schedule, press clippings wake Diddy up, coordinate everything with security, travel.
Long hours.
7 days a week sometimes, he said. Maybe 3 weeks straight without a day off. But he did get overtime, and the pay was $70,000, which wasn't bad for, 2007, 2009.
Yeah. He mentioned writers.
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
Distinction between hotel writers and TV appearance writers, but didn't elaborate much yet.
And security. Who was on the team then?
He named Uncle Paulie, who apparently carried a knife, D-Rock, Big Tim, Bonds. Said security told him, James, to basically stay in his lane.
Another indicator of hierarchy, maybe. Who else was around?
Mentioned Amanda on staff, Chef Jordan, his supervisor Dia Capricorn Clark, and Diddy's girlfriends during his time there.
Who did he name?
Sarah, Tara, Jana, and Cassie.
Okay, so he interacted with Cassie.
He did. Met her at Diddy's place in Miami. Recounted a specific conversation with Cassie and Carrie Morgan on Star Island.
Oh, what was said?
James testified that Cassie described the lifestyle as crazy.
But she stayed.
Yeah, and according to James, she said it was because Diddy paid for her car, her home, and was helping her career.
That feels like a key point, alleging that financial dependency.
It really does. It aligns with themes of alleged control brought up by others. He also said Cassie played in music from an album that never got released, and she seemed proud of it.
And how did he describe the dynamic between Cassie and, say, Kim Porter?
He referred to Kim Porter as Diddy's queen, and Cassie, he described her as moldable.
Moldable. Interesting choice of word.
Very. He also mentioned disagreements about Cassie's career path, singing versus modeling. His testimony was set to continue, so we only got the initial part.
Still, even that first part paints quite a picture. That kingdom comment, the alleged statement from Cassie about why she stayed, it offers this insider's view of the environment and the alleged control.
Definitely. So if we try to quickly recap this week, we've had Dawn Richard and Carrie Morgan making serious allegations of abuse, control, corroborating parts of Cassie's story.
Right, but then the cross-examinations really chipped away at Richard's consistency and explored Morgan's complex relationships and maybe motivation.
Exactly. And David James starts to give us this look behind the curtain at the structure, the hierarchy, that alleged financial control aspect.
It's a really complex tapestry of relationships, power, money, and very different versions of events being presented.
Absolutely. The jury has an incredibly difficult task ahead, weighing all this conflicting testimony, credibility, evidence, or lack thereof sometimes.
So for you listening, hopefully this deep dive gives you a clearer framework for understanding these key testimonies from week 2. You get the core allegations, the challenges, those little insights into the dynamics.
Yeah, those potential aha moments, like Cassie's alleged reason for staying, or the context around Carrie's falling out with her, trying to make sense of a really high-profile, complicated situation.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe. When you hear about these power dynamics, the passage of time, clouding memories, the NDAs, the settlements, these conflicting stories, what challenges does that highlight for you about how our legal system tries to find the truth in cases like this?
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
Right. And beyond the courtroom, what does this glimpse into that world make you wonder about influence, fame, and the courage it takes for people to speak out, even years later, against powerful figures. Lots to think about.